Welcome to Puro Politics, the political podcast of the San Antonio Express News. My name is Gilbert Garcia, Metro columnist, and I'm joined by
business editor and columnist Greg Jefferson,
investigative reporter Brian Chasnoff.
We're a little bit more than a week past city elections, still trying to kind of make sense of everything, and we're, I guess, a little bit less than 4 weeks away from city council runoffs. We had 5 city council members get reelected. 3 of them are facing runoffs, and we've got 2 runoffs for open seats. So we've still got a lot of election news that's happening now. And fortunately, we've got someone here to help us try to assess what is happening in San Antonio right now. Demonte Alexander is a political consultant. He's the political director of the Black Equity PAC, director of external affairs for Bearer Facts. He's a U.S. Army veteran and one of the most insightful people in our community when it comes to discussing political issues. Demonte, thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Hey, thank you guys. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with you guys. I follow the podcast all the time and just find it so valuable with the information and the conversations you guys discuss. So thankful to be here.
Well, thank you. And I really want to get your take on what we've seen with this city election. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing. And one thing that I've never had a chance to ask you, I'm curious about is, what it was that first got you interested in politics. Was there a particular election cycle, or what was it that kind of sort of sparked that interest for you?
Well, I have to say, for me, I was coming off of transition and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself in my life. And I ran into someone who's no stranger to this community, and T.C. Calvert Sr., right. Tommy Calvert's, what the community would know as Tommy Calvert's dad, Commissioner Calvert. And he was doing a lot of work with union organizing and with the Fair Contracting Coalition, and basically holding government accountable to contracting for minorities. And I just found, just in my life, even being in the military most of my life, I have never really been around anyone that's challenging local government in that way and just fighting for people. And that really inspired me to want to get involved. Now,
the Black Equity PAC formed on Juneteenth 2020, and it sounds like the effort really is to try to sort of support, recruit, train Black candidates in our community to run for political office. Can you talk a little bit about how this how the organization formed and the need that you felt was there in our community?
Yeah, for sure. The Black Equity PAC was started the Juneteenth of 2020. That's coming off the backs of the George Floyd killing, and I think this is just part of the call to action that just culminated from a lot of people. And I thought, well, I can't save the world, obviously, but what can I do within my community? And I called a group of friends and people who we've done some projects together in the past, and I know that they're just advocates for this type of work, and they all felt it was a great idea. We filed our paperwork with the state and the federal government and formed the PAC. And essentially what we see here is that, although I think African Americans are roughly about 8 to 9% in the county, we oftentimes don't see that representation, whether that be elected official, or whether that be in the business, in the halls of government and business. And so what we wanted to do is just build the infrastructure, the political infrastructure to recruit, train, and support those candidates. Now, we're not exclusive to only African Americans. That's what our focus is. But if anyone else calls and just looking for information or resources, we're happy to help them as well. But that's where it inspired it, just over the protests over the summer around George Floyd.
Was Rebecca Clay Flores the new county commissioner? Was she the first candidate that you all sort of got behind last year, or were there others?
Right. She was the very first candidate for that we publicly endorsed, and the thing, I have this thing about endorsements. Usually you get endorsements and they just come with a logo, right? They don't really come with much. And so I just really want our endorsements to be purposeful. When you say you endorse someone, that actually means something. And that's something that I'm proud that we've been able to do. We endorsed Travis Wiltshire in the Alamo Heights school board election. Obviously, unfortunately, he fell short. But again, we provided some support for him as well. And so that's essentially what we want to do. And although if we don't, just because we don't endorse you doesn't mean we're not here to support the community. And I think that's something that's missing. If you don't get an endorsement for us, you can still call us for lists. You can still call us for information and training and those types of things. And so we just want to be available to the community for that.
Have you gotten involved in any city council races?
Well, we have not. Well, when you say involved, we haven't officially endorsed any candidate in the city council races. Well, I just felt like endorsing one Black candidate over another is just not productive. And so so if that was going to be the case, we needed to find a way to help everyone. And so what we did host a District 2 candidate forum, and which went very well. A lot of people from the community were, asking to, watch it, send the link. And I think we will be doing another forum with News 4 for the runoff for District 2 in a couple of weeks. And so that's one of the ways that we found that we could still be helpful and resourceful to the candidates who are running without endorsing one or another. Obviously, we'll end up having to endorse one candidate after this runoff. But we do have a questionnaire that, just like all the other organizations, that they can fill out, and so we can vet their application and just streamline, just like all the other ones.
Well, Bear Facts had a really good election cycle when it came to gauging public opinion. They had had Nuremberg like way ahead in the poll that you put out weeks before the election, and I think the margin was pretty close to what you all had, and then you all also had Proposition B, which the fixed SAPD proposition, which was designed to repeal collective bargaining for the police union. That you had that one a really close race. I think the Proposition B was side, I think, was behind by 5 points. They ended up losing by about a little bit more than 2 points. So you're very close on that. When Bear Facts came together, was this? Was the feeling that we just didn't have a reliable source in San Antonio to provide data on what the public was thinking about some of the big issues that were happening here? Is that what drove the whole thing?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think every major city in America, not in America, but in Texas, we noticed that they have some type of polling organization to monitor or just to get a gauge the political climate around policy and issues. And we modeled ours after the Kinder Institute out of Houston. They're partnered with Rice University, and I think they've been around about 40 years. Mm-hmm. And they've done a great job of just managing or monitoring the temperature and the climate politically there, and along with just issues, policy issues as well. And so we started that, and Christian called me, and I think it was 2019 in October. Says, Christian Archer, sorry. Says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to keep my business alive. And he said, well, I have a great project. And we talked about it, got it going. We brought on Lisa Baratachea from the Hotel and Lodging Association. We wanted to do that just to create some balance. Obviously, I'm a Democrat. Lisa's a Republican. Archer's been a Democratic strategist. So we felt it was important to have a lot of balance in terms of voice and representation there.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask if you do just straight polling, or if you also do political consulting in addition to that.
So I've tried to stay away from that, just to, when you do polling, credibility is huge. Right. Transparency is huge.
That's why I asked.
Right. And so, we try, our mission is, we want to amplify the voice of the people to shape the future of this community. And this community should be part of that. But, the goal here is to remove bias at all possible. We don't want any bias when it comes to the work that we do. We hired a national poster. He's done he's done all of our bond initiatives. He's done pre-K. So Dave Metz at FM3 Research is very familiar with this community. He does a great job of making sure that our questions are asked fair and balanced. And I think the component that we've been missing, and COVID really hurt us on this last year, we really want to get the community involved in drafting, producing that first draft, right? And so I've worked with Cynthia Spielman over at the Tier 1 Neighborhood Association. They have about roughly around 50 neighborhoods that kind of, or just community leaders just fall into that organization. And so basically they're going to help us shape what the poll should look like. And then that poll comes to us, and then it goes to our media partners, KSAT, SA Report, and on to our pollster. So there's a lot of layers and levels of accountability and transparency and making sure that we're producing a great product that the community can actually use.
So I'm hearing no, you don't do political consulting. Is that correct?
No, I don't do political consulting. Two reasons. Number one, my position with the Black Equity PAC, I have to, be fair and neutral about those things, but also obviously what we do at Bare Facts. So it just prevents me from doing any type of public consulting.
How about Christian Archer? Is he still doing political consulting?
Christian isn't. A big part of the reason why I came on, what he told me and what I've seen is he's just, he's done with politics, and running campaigns, if you will, and consulting in a way. I think he's focused on, real estate, commercial real estate and some other ideas, and big, Christian's just a big idea guy, and he just wants to focus on another part of his career rather than politics.
Demonte, I want to talk a little bit about this election cycle. We saw Ron Nirenberg just roll to an easy, basically a 2-1 victory over Greg Brockhouse, who came close to beating him 2 years earlier. When you look at this mayoral election, was there anything that Brockhouse could have done to make this a competitive race, or was this just a kind of a predetermined blowout as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I think the damage was done in the first election. Mm-hmm. I think there was, obviously there's a couple things. The first election, there was a lot of, information that came out that negatively impacted Greg. But also, you see a mayor on the TV every night, guiding us through the pandemic. And I always tell people, the mayor's done a great job with the pandemic. I mean, if I'm in any city, I would want my mayor to act and perform the way he did. He was steady, calm. And obviously there are some things that we could poke at, but all in all, I think he did a great job. But I think that helped him as well. I mean, thank God for the poll. That's why we do the poll 2 weeks ahead of time, so the community would be able to see a snapshot of what the election could possibly look like. And we've been spot on the last 2 election cycles.
Demonte, I wanted to ask you about District 2. What do you think is the reason for such a high turnover with the council members there? Because the thinking is that's really held the district back in terms of establishing a power base there.
Yeah, that's a good question. And to me, I think it comes down to leadership. And when I say leadership, it's not always from the top, but District 2 is one of those communities where you really need to be involved. And this is every community, but you just seen that, like from Ivy, for example. Ivy started off as an organizer. She was very involved in the community. Even as a mayor, when she made it to mayor, she was, still kind of really focusing on some of the issues that are D2 specific. But I think it comes down to leadership, man, and being consistent and calling your people back and just doing the basic things that people want you to do. I think that's been a part. Some of them have obviously been personal issues. We've had some good council members who were everywhere, who went to every event, every function, did what they needed to do, but just personal issues got in the way. We had a council member who was just a breath of fresh air for the district, who just decided, just wanted a career change, and that was unfortunate. But and now here we are. It's just been back to back. Yes, in Crushaw, absolutely. Yeah, and you look at Jada Andrew Sullivan, and even that last election. I mean, she won by 200 votes. To former councilman who was appointed, Keith Toney. And, again, I think it just comes down to leadership. I think that's why you're seeing the turnover the way you're seeing. I mean, obviously leadership in some of those situations are not the case. But for the most part, I think that's what you're seeing.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just going to ask. So your PAC isn't making an endorsement in the runoff. It sounds like. Is it tempting? Like, is this something you would like to jump into?
So we will be making an endorsement in the runoff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we have to get through the debate that we have scheduled with News 4, and we will be making that endorsement. I know some would say, well, they probably need your endorsement now to help you get through it, but that's just what the committee decided to do. So that we will be making an endorsement after the debate.
Yeah. Now, before you mentioned that, I mean, an endorsement on its own doesn't mean much. It needs to come with support. What kind of support will that entail?
So we hop on the phones. We help phone bank. We help block walk. The most important part, we give an infusion of cash that may pay for those walkers, that may pay for mailers. We provide some lists that we have collected over the past few months or all of last year that, sometimes maybe they have a different donor list than we do. And we compare those notes to see where they can find more resources. And so essentially anyway, just like if we were on the campaign or a supporter of the campaign, we try to provide those resources. We also try to connect them to other like-minded PACs. For example, like for Jalen, for example, he has Hispanic support and also Black support. And so even though we're the Black Equity PAC, we may have a relationship with other PACs that we may be able to connect to him as well for more resources. Or Jada.
I was, at the beginning, we mentioned how close the Proposition B vote. And I think we all, believe that the interest in that and just, the emotion surrounding the issue of policing in this country, that this really drove the turnout up in the city election. When you look at what happened, Proposition B probably exceeding expectations, but ultimately losing by about a little more than 2%. What's the message that you think came through in that really divided election, and what impact do you think it's going to have on the police union as they continue with these with their negotiations with the city?
I think the message that it sends is that the community is wanting accountability in this process. Hands down. I mean, you talk about a grassroots organization. I mean, these folks, some of them didn't even understand the political landscape, didn't know from one thing to do to the next when it came to organizing and campaigning. And for them to get that close within 2%, and this is really, really supported by the community. So I think the community wants to see accountability within this police force. And obviously we've seen in on one of our previous polls that a majority of this community across all demographics felt that the union was a barrier to that accountability. And I think that's what we've seen in this current election cycle. I know Danny Diaz, he's talked about having a different approach than Mike Haley, former president Mike Haley. And, you can feel and see that. But I think what hurts him is that he continues to use that rhetoric that everyone knows is not true in terms of, I guess to sum it up is that he's not taking ownership and accountability for what is wrong. Mm-hmm. It's like a zero-sum game when it comes to the issues that need to be addressed. And I think no matter what happens, this community is awake. Who's to say they don't go get another 20,000 signatures on the next one, and it's right back on the next ballot. And now they have a platform to run from. And so I think it sends a loud and clear message that this needs to get done. But hey, Mayor said, hey, hold me accountable. Yeah. And I think he talked about, hey, when I said hold me accountable, that means give me, trust me sitting at the table to get these things done. And I think the ball's in their court now. So everybody's watching to see what he really meant by that. And hopefully he gets it done.
One of the things that frustrated me with the union was when, like you said, they were using this kind of rhetoric saying this is going to defund the police. And I think that maybe that was a simpler message for them than to really get into the nuts and bolts of what collective bargaining means versus, meet and confer or some other process. Maybe that would have just been too much, to throw on the voters. But it felt to me like saying this is going to defund the police when there's really nothing it was basically just saying we want to have a different process by which negotiations take place. That there's no reason to get from that the police are going to be defunded. But that seemed to be what they were putting across.
I think this is campaigning 101, right? So our polls said defunding was a no-go in this community, and accountability was favorable. I think the only issue with Fix SAPD movement was they started to embrace accountability too late in the game, and I think when you're able to see, data the way you can see it now, I mean, it plays right into messaging. You saw how because initially the police union was not using defund the way they were towards in the middle of the campaign, and so it's messaging 101. Campaigns are a battle of messages, and I've had conversations on both sides of this issue where there's a lot that people who disagree on both sides of the issue. For example, when you tell me defund, I know exactly what you mean. When you say that, because I've been educated on it. I've talked to the people on the ground, and I've been part of that movement. And so I understand that. So there's no convincing to me. The issue becomes when you have to run a campaign and that message is so important. The trick here is you don't want Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Martinez to go to the ballot box saying, hey, look, I really support these kids and this movement, and I don't want to say just kids. And they're not kids. They're they're the activists and just this community coming together saying, hey, we want to solve this. Hey, I believe them. I want to support them. But the question I have in my mind is, when I press this button to vote, will I have police officers tomorrow? And I think that's you have to get into the psychological aspect of when people go to that ballot box, what are they thinking in their heads? And if they have any doubt that their police officers will not have funding, or this community will not have police officers at all, that's a scary thought to some people. And so that's why the messaging is so important. And I think them using defund really, really hurt that movement. Being able to flip it on them. I mean, it's a good strategy. I mean, they saw the poll, they saw the numbers, they saw it was unfavorable, they used it. But also, I think it would have been more helpful for more of these elected officials who won by 60, 70% of the vote. If they supported Brot B, they should have spoke up and said something, because it really could have helped if they really believed in the movement.
How do you think the election results will kind of shape how the police union approaches bargaining going forward? Or will it have any impact at all?
I think it'll have a big impact. I mean, you can't blink at that, right? I mean, you were a few thousand votes from not having your rights to collectively bargain, right? And so you have to, if you're Danny Diaz, you have to go into this eyes wide open, figuring out, okay, we have an issue here, right? We need to address. I mean, obviously, we all know the issue, but it's just coming to that understanding that, hey, we need to fix this. I mean, for example, look at the last collective bargaining fight we had. I don't know how many millions of dollars we wasted fighting the fire union, right? Because we didn't. But when you polled the fire union, you saw that they were polling at 70%. There was no way you're ever going to beat them, because this community, a regular person, and I don't want to, say that people are dumb or anything, but I want to say that when you say, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a fire union and the firefighters, the Firefighter Association and the actual firefighters, right? And so when you poll them, they poll so high because everyone loves firefighters. And if you had that data, if you had that insight before you get into a fight with them, I think you'd probably try to find a way to get an agreement done, because it just was no way of winning that. But I think the same thing in this instance. You see the results come out and how close it was. You have to move forward in a different way and having different conversations. I think this community, Henry Cisneros always talks about the success that he's had over the years has been because he's been a bridge builder. And I think with today's climate and politics, everyone's it's dug in on their side, right? And we need bridge builders. We need people that come to the table, not asking people to jump from one side to another, but to, hey, just let's meet in the middle of this bridge. Let's talk about what our differences are. We don't have to agree on them, but if it moves this community forward, if it improves the lives of people, let's agree to do that. But definitely need more bridge builders in this community.
Demonte, before we wrap things up, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we mentioned Jada Andrew Sullivan in District 2. We've got two other incumbents, Roberto Trevino in District 1 and John Courage in District 9. In both of those cases, they want a plurality of the vote on May 1st, but they've got runoffs. So Roberto Trevino is facing Mario Bravo. John Courage is facing Patrick Von Dolen, the social conservative who's run. I think they've faced each other 3 times in a row now. When you look at those two races, how vulnerable do you see those two council candidates going forward?
Well, I think it depends. Roberto, look, he's done the work, man. I mean, he's just done the work, and he can run on that. And, you know, Mario, he's been a community advocate. I served in a lot of a leadership program with Mario, so very familiar with him. I mean, Mario was out here doing contact tracing in the middle of COVID. You know, he's someone who authentically cares about the community. But, you know, when you stack that up against Roberto and what he's done for this community, from white roof to, you know, mobile showers to even part of the statue removals, Roberto's just been on the side of the issues, and he just has the body of work that you can look at. And it's just tough for somebody who doesn't really have that on that level. Mm-hmm. I think the key to that race is them, number one, doubling down on that message, but number two, Cindy Dominguez, I think she got around 10% of that vote, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think Mario, I think it was roughly 10% that the councilman Roberto Trevino was leading by. That's going to be a tough feat to capture in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's just a matter of, you know, who can capture, the votes from Cindy Dominguez. I think if you add them up, it puts Mario right at neck and neck with Roberto, if all of those Cindy Dominguez voters went to Mario.
Why is Councilman Trevino struggling for re-election? Like what's at the heart of that?
I don't think he's struggling. I think if you look at the last election, he won by 59% of the vote. Right. He almost had 60% of the vote just the last election. Mm-hmm. And I think he had a few more candidates this time, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I haven't seen. I always try to look at something that the other things that no one else is looking at. When you look at some of the other candidates and how many votes they pulled, I looked at Cindy, and she pulled a significant amount of votes that could have pushed Roberto over the top, right, if she wasn't in the race. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I looked at that race. As far as District 9, same thing. I mean, it's not even Von Dolen that we're talking about. We're talking about Erica Moe, who got 3,105 votes. I mean, that's 12% of the vote, and she's conservative. And I know, and I know that Courage has kind of been, I think when he started off, he was more of a progressive, the Bernie type of candidate. Mm-hmm. But I think over the years, as he's gotten to more familiar with his constituency, they've kind of pushed him back to the middle a little bit more. Right. But also, I think from what I'm understanding, that whoever can capture Erica's support will win this election, hands down.
Yeah. Really interesting point. You got me thinking about those two in District 1 and District 9, the third place finishers in both of those. I think they really are.
Well, if you add them up, Gilbert, if you add them up, they're right there neck and neck. And I think one of them is 48% versus 47%. If you add, if you give Von Dolen Erica Moe's numbers, she beats Courage. Yeah, right. And so same thing with Roberto.
Well, I think we're going to wrap things up there. Demonte Alexander, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. It was great having you on. We really appreciate it. And for everybody listening in, glad to be here with you. And we'll be back again next week and following these council races. Take care.